All right, welcome everybody. Week 44, Becker Vineyards virtual tasting. We're all together for a special lineup today. Got the man, the myth, the legend, Dr. Richard Becker, and the man of the hour of power, Mr. Bret Perrenoud. So we got a wonderful lineup of wines tonight. We've got a very special Viognier, our what put us on the map here. We've got our great Cab Syrah Reserve Cab Syrah blend that we have in distribution, and then a beautiful Petite Sirah that's a lot of our estate grapes as well. So have a great lineup tonight, and I think we'll have a great time enjoying these wines together from where we're at. And Dr. Becker, you have any words to go ahead and open us up by?
I wish I had better words, but I do think there is going to be some light at the end of this tunnel. 44th time that maybe I've missed one session, but which I've just sort of thanking everyone who is carrying us through this terrible pandemic at every level, medical and all the other support things that make our country work. And this is just a moment, step back from that, and a chance to get to taste and think about some of these wonderful wines that we've all made together. That's a treat. So anyway, take the vaccine as soon as you can. Continue the masking and protect yourself in every way. And let's have this behind us. Put it in the rearview mirror. It'll happen.
Yes, sir. Here. How about you, Bret?
Well, I get to start off with the funner part of this is get to talk about the wine and
yes, sir.
And again, I think that I do want to mention all of our staff that have done such a great job during the time that we've had to do different things and how we're distancing at the tasting rooms.
Yes, here.
And how the main location at Stonewall is outside. And these guys have had to completely learn how to beat. So that's kudos to you guys, Bobby, and your team in the tasting room.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
So Bret, let's have some fun with this. How many times have we planted Viognier on our property?
I think at least 3.
And we've made some wonderful Viognier, and then we ought to maybe rethink it now that we're better able to deal with Pierce's disease. But before those vines died, we made some great Viognier.
And I think that's one of the things that this will kind of point to Dr. Becker and how hard-headed he is, I guess, about you can plant something 3 times and it dies, and he still wants to do it again. So, that I guess each their own. But we did plant Viognier. We're the first in Texas to do this. We've said this before, but the idea was that they really love Viogniers from Condrieu in France and wanted to produce those in Texas. And so that's, I think, why you guys originally planted it. But it's just not the best place in the world to plant it in the hill country. And there's a lot of producers out here that have started to replant. And as many of them that have vineyards that are alive, I've met that many that they put them in and they die right away. So, it's definitely a challenge to grow Viognier, but it can be done. And again, there's new things on the horizon that maybe let that happen too.
So the meaning of the word, the derivation of Viognier probably comes from the city Vienne, which is nearby, but it also can mean road of the valley of hell, and we've had sort of that experience with it on our property. Boy, getting it to grow in other places, it's just been an absolute star, and this is some of it.
Yes.
Also, it was
those vineyards. Sorry, Doc.
Yeah.
I said as we planted those vineyards and they kind of went in and out of their thing, I think it's why you guys started contracting with more people, contracting with more growers to, plant Viognier so that you could have kind of a solid stream. And we've got about 4 right now that plant Viognier for us. And this one is the Jet Wilmoth Vineyard and the Farmhouse Vineyard and the Bingham Vineyard. This does not have much ready in it, but we also have the ready vineyard. So that was kind of the plan as far as why we brought those other ones in. Plus, I think they bring a little bit to the table from each one of those sites.
It was first imported, we think, by the Emperor Probus in the year 231. And planted in Condrieu. The other famous white grapes there, Roussanne and Marsanne, are native to that part of France. But this was the import. And in 1965, it was down to about 8 acres. And then from that point to now, it's had enormous growth and planting in many, many places in the world: Australia, South America, United States, Texas. I think it's been sort of the white grape of Texas. That's been fun to watch it come along that path. It's interestingly has some DNA linked to Nebbiolo, the principal red Italian grape, or one of them.
Wow.
And but from there, I don't know how it got to where it is now. But that genetic information is around in the Viognier grape.
Well, one of the things, Bobby, do you have any thoughts about like what you guys hear in the tasting room, or what the consensus is for that side of it?
So, I mean, what we have learned traditionally through what you've taught us, and what we've learned through gathering information, looking up the different characters and notes of it. When people come in and they're like, reds, and we, mention our Viognier, what it is, it's the red drinker's white wine, references the red drinker's white wine. People tend to like perk up to that, and they're willing to kind of give it a shot, and they're pleasantly surprised by the floral notes, and sometimes people kind of get thrown off by floral notes when it's mentioned, but it's not overpowering. It's a very nice, well-balanced wine, and I think everybody has a really nice impression by our Viognier in our tasting room.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the staples that I always remember. People come in, they may not know how to say it. They dang sure didn't know how to say it 15 years ago, Dr. Becker. They're getting better at it, I think, because they see it at so many other places, and there's so many producers now that are pouring Viogniers on the wine trail and then across the state. But I think that it is interesting how often it'll hold up to foods that maybe not hold up to a normal white wine, and that's why I think they refer to it as the red wine drinker's white. And I've personally experienced how, being behind the bar, trust me, I'm not behind the bar very much compared to Bobby. Bobby's there every day, but how many people will come and say, I only drink red wines, and I'm like, well, you got to try this white, because and it's amazing how many times they say, oh my gosh, this is great for somebody that normally only drinks red. So I think that's where it also comes in to being real versatile.
Definitely. It has a huge impact, because being so hot in Texas, and I try to reference it all the time, and to people that we're serving, is that not always you want a big heavy red, especially in the summertime, but this is so versatile, and it's that crisp, refreshing, and people can enjoy it during the summertime. So what are we picking up on the nose here?
I think always peach, always nectarine, little bit of orange blossom, little apricot, but all those stone fruits that grow around us in the hill country, and also grow around the vineyards in Condrieu in the top of the Rhone Valley. Very similar soil and types of fruit trees that are grown.
Yeah, and I pick up just a hint from the barrel. And this goes back to these, our barrel program is what it is, and it's been the way it's been for a long time. And this one's one that doesn't waver very much. I think John probably changed it a little bit in the sense that he gets so much more fruit out of this. And he does a great job kind of holding those soft fruit notes in there. I can also tell you, this is one that when we press it, it is one of the hardest ones to actually get the juice out from the, through the press. We have to roll it, and we have to squeeze it, and we squeeze it soft and then let loose and then squeeze it soft again. But invariably, this is the one that every year comes in fairly early. And after the Sauvignon Blanc and some of the thinner skinned ones come in, and they're easy to press, this one is the one that we always open the door to the presser and like, oh gosh, we got to do it again. And it always shocks everybody. And I'm sitting there going, we know this, we've done it for a long time. Put the press back on. And get a little bit more out of it, because when we open that door for the first time, invariably there's whole entire berries that haven't popped, and while you don't want to squeeze the living heck out of it to make them pop, you want to get enough juice out of it. So that's one thing that we always kind of have to remember when we do this one when it comes in. I think the other thing, Doc, that we've kind of changed a little bit is we want this one to be ripe, but we don't want it to be 25 and a half or 26 bricks because it kind of gets a burnt note. And we kind of backed off a little bit, maybe right at 24.5 to 25 is kind of perfect. And I see Rachel is coming on, so she can help with that kind of once she gets on here. But we've changed the way that we manage the acid on these. Perfect timing, Rachel. I'm just talking about acid on Viogniers.
Hi, Rach.
Hey.
You zoom in.
But you know, I think what's happened is that the thought was that to get the great complex flavors, you had to let the fruit get really ripe. And that was certainly going on in California and not so much in France. But I think that John and Rachel have gotten so good at extracting the fruit that we don't have to have super ripe. So we can have less alcohol, we can have better acid control, and we can have a better expression. And so I guess, Bret, how many years ago was the Lyon competition? 7 or 8? I'm not sure
I think
exactly.
At least I think it was like
the
the
Three Texas Winery. Okay, so 10. So, but Three Texas Winery sent their Viognier and to be blind tasting. I know we mentioned this before, but I'm so proud of it. All French judges. The only non-Condrieu Viogniers were from Texas, and there were a bunch of French Viogniers, including the very best. And our wine scored the 3 top positions in that contest with French judges blind. Of course, that's never mentioned by anybody, but for some reason we're the only ones interested. But I'm very proud of that, and I think it has to do with winemaking and what you're saying.
Well, I think you should be proud of it. I think that's.
Thank you.
Rachel, I was talking about the difference in the acid management. Maybe, I don't know, since you've been there versus what we're doing now, it doesn't have to be real in depth, but grow program, what we're doing to this to get, and again, maybe the difference too between the reserve Viognier that we're trying here and the non-reserve. I have to not say regular because that's not the right word, but the non-reserve that is in distribution.
Sure. So there's several things to bring up. One, I want to say that for our oak program, our Viognier goes into all French oak. And this one I know for sure did. I was very adamant that this wine go into 100% French oak. And we use, a variation of neutral and brand new. I would say no more than 30 to 40% brand new, and the rest of it is neutral. And I think that whenever it comes back together, you get lots of those oak nuances, but it's not overwhelming. It still allows the fruit, the brightness, the crispness of the fruit to shine through. As far as the difference between our reserve and the non-reserve, one of the things that I love the most is it's all the same. They all come from the same growers. We just do a blind tasting. We do trials and then we present to the Beckers and Bret. We do blind tastings for them so that they can pick which blend of our 4 growers who provide our Viognier. And to me, why I think this is so significant is because all of our Viogniers that we're getting from our growers are so good. They're very individual in their own. They have their own characteristics, but it's the blending and putting it together and playing with it and letting one of them shine, or really all of them shine and do what they do. That to me is the magic of it.
Yeah.
Cool.
I can hear somebody's cat. Is that yours, Rachel?
I know. I'm like, listen, talk about that. You can't hear the goat in the back yelling at me, can you? The other thing you mentioned a couple of times, acidity. So yeah, we do know that in Texas we are going to have to acidulate the grapes whenever they come in. We're spot on with the not allowing the grapes to get so overripe that the alcohol was so high that the fruit was out of balance, and that to me there's always a bitterness on the back that comes from that super ripe white grape. So making sure that our Viognier comes in just a little bit low, and not just our Viognier, but all of our whites, making sure they come in just a little bit lower than what our reds would, I think allows that finesse to shine through without the bitterness and the harshness.
Well, and I think too, that was something that we have to, on that particular grape, the growers in Lubbock can call us and tell us that it's 23.5, and it could jump a brick in 2 days, and we can't wait to get the truck. It's like once it hits that note, we got to go get it. And it's no waiting around. I'll never forget that VJ Reddy called me and said, hey, this Viognier is at 24.8 or something. And I'm like, well, Doc likes them ripe. I guess we'll let it, and I think I waited like 2 days or 3 days. And I went up there and looked at the vineyard, and it looked like it was toasted earth, because that stuff just it won't hold up for that long.
No.
And we had to do a lot of damage control to kind of make it into a really good wine. But the crazy part was too, that was the year that we made the standalone ready Viognier as a reserve. So as soon as we're talking about not getting it too ripe and all that stuff, that year I think it came in at 26 bricks, and we all really liked it. But again, we had to do a lot of things to make it that way. But I think that's where the winemaking side comes into this, and that balance comes in. So.
Hey, Rachel, talk about stainless steel without malolactic fermentation. What percentage was in barrel for malolactic for this reserve? And talk a little bit about what malolactic is and versus standard fermentation, so people will know about it.
Doc, nobody ever lets me get sciencey geeky on this.
Now's your chance.
So malolactic fermentation, basically what we're talking about is you have the three major acids in the grapes are tartaric, and that's the acid that makes a grape taste like a grape. And you've got citric, which we all know, your lemon, lime, orange, citric notes that we all know and love. And then you have malic. And malic acid is the acid that makes a Granny Smith apple taste like a Granny Smith apple, that tart greenness. And so that's the secondary acid in all grapes. So the reason that we put wine through malolactic fermentation is it's twofold. One of them is to reduce that sharp green acidity. So there's a bacteria, lactic acid bacteria, that converts that malic into lactic acid. So it's nicer, it's softer, it's rounder in the mouthfeel. The second reason is just for preservation, so that we can allow the wines to age without accidentally going through that malolactic fermentation and producing all kinds of fun off aromas. So this particular wine, if it went through malolactic, and I don't think it did. I am so 100% positive that it never went through. There might be like a tiny, maybe a half a gram per liter that did go through malolactic. And I know that it did ferment and age in 100% French oak. If it went through a little bit of stainless steel, it was such a small amount, such a tiny amount.
So, Rachel, when the French talked about the devil's fermentation in the 19th century, that meant that after the wine had gone through the primary fermentation that Pasteur described, which the yeast accomplishes, so the wine is now no longer sweet in a French barrel in a cellar in 1780. It's not sweet, and the wine is quiet. And then when the cellar warms up in the spring, they begin to hear the barrels hissing again and carbon dioxide being formed, and that was called the devil's fermentation. That's the malolactic. That's a bacteria that
Right.
turns malic acid into lactic acid, Granny Smith into buttered popcorn, basically. Yeah. So, but it's kind of a wonderful thing. One part is with yeast, the other part is with bacteria. So it's an interesting difference in the history of winemaking.
And like you're saying, they would wait until the spring when everything warmed back up to allow it to happen naturally. I'm a little bit more controlling than that, and I through before Christmas so that we can be done with fermentation and put everything to bed.
Yeah.
Hey, did you tell them that it always doesn't work too if the wine stays too cold?
No, I didn't bring that up. No.
That's why that one warehouse is like 65 or 70 and not 40, right? Or 45.
Right.
So,
well, it is. It is why we move during harvest and during all the fermentations, why we keep the barrels in the barrel stay over by the bottling line, because it stays inherently a little bit warmer to allow everything to finish fermentations. And then when it's done, then we can move it to those cold rooms and it can just go to bed.
But it has been pretty fun to watch those bungs pop out of the barrels. Then they had got too warm and thunk.
So Bobby, are you seeing any questions from people listening?
I'm seeing people saying love it when Rachel gets scientific, and Trish is saying get geeky girl, which she's really enjoying that. So that's kind of what I'm seeing. That someone really got excited about the 26 bricks on our on the Viognier. So that's
we all get excited about it.
there's a Charles Gage said, is this the point where punch down is used?
So on whites, we actually don't do punch downs because the idea of punching the grapes down, it's a red wine technique, and you're trying to push those grapes down and keep everything homogeneous and keep the top, which we call the cap, dry. And with whites, we're fermenting just the juice. There are no grapes left in there, and so you just get to put it in barrel and let it do its job. But
So
yeah, we do.
on white.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Sorry.
No, you're fine.
So basically on whites, no skin contact, just the skin contact from where it's harvested.
This is where this gets interesting because we're shipping grapes from Lubbock, Texas to the Hill Country.
It's true.
So those whites have 6 hours of skin contact if the truck doesn't stop for fuel or tacos or coffee, right? So,
No harvester broke down. Everything ran so smoothly and quick. I mean, it happens. But
I think that's one of the unique things about what we're doing is that we're shipping grapes from that far away. And I talk about this almost every time this question comes up because technically they could be in the field 2 hours before they get loaded on the truck to be shipped down to us. So really they had maybe 9 hours of skin contact, and that could be good and it could be bad. And for a couple of years, we actually tried an experiment where we shipped all of our grapes to a different crush facility up there. And we went up and ran it and watched the grapes be crushed and see what that limited. I mean, we could be from the vineyard to the field in an hour versus the extended period of time, but we actually kind of are liking the way that this is working. And so we're shipping everything home right now. And that's been that way, I guess, since, 2012 or something like that. So they are soaking on their skins and juice as they come down in the bins for that transit time. And again, these guys are doing things to add things to those bins to not cause browning. They're putting additives in the bins as the growers are picking them to keep them the way you want them when they hit the door.
Someone did mention, are there a difference between Chardonnay and Viognier fermentation?
Basically, no. They're, we treat them respectively the same. As far as they get the same long drive treatment, they get, whenever they come in, we immediately press them, cold settle the grapes cold settle the juice so that, little scientific, again, geekiness. So basically what we do, juice comes in and it's got a lot of sediment. It comes from West Texas, kids. There's a lot of dirt out there. There's just a lot of stuff happening. So once we press the grapes, it's kind of thick, like think orange juice with the pulp. We allow all that to settle, and that gives us nice, clear, clean juice to ensure that the fermentation moves along smoothly and there's no interference. As far as the Chardonnay and Viognier, the thing right off the top of my head, the first thing that happens is we put the Chardonnay for sure through malolactic. That absolutely always happens. The Viognier, not always. I really love Viognier whenever it doesn't, and it's just oak aged. But there have been some really, really beautiful Viogniers that have gone through malolactic that are just absolutely lovely.
Is that why it stays in the cold warehouse on accident? So it doesn't go through on accident?
Yes, that's why we keep the barrels topped and sulfur added and cold.
Basically, it is a controlled substance. I had to do that since John's not on.
I'm like,
I thought that was a question.
Yeah,
I know, I did too. I was like, legality? I don't know. Is it? I don't know. I don't think so. Yeah, to the best of my degree, I control it as much as I can, as much as I possibly can.
Cool. All right. Uh, anything else on our Viognier, or ready to move on to our nice reserve Cab Syrah?
Let's do that. Yeah.
Okay.
So I would say one last thing about the Viognier that I was looking at earlier today when I was looking at all of our notes about it, that we bottled this towards the end of 2018, I believe. I think that's right. And it's 2021, and this is still holding up beautifully, just absolutely beautifully. It's been one of my favorites.
It has been a wonderful wine. It's been, I think I've enjoyed this one the most out of all of our Viognier so far.
Yeah. And they've all been lovely. All of
They
them.
have.
Just keep doing more and keep getting better and finding different avenues.
That's what we do. All right, so on to our.
Bobby, by the way, we made a lot of this one because it was so good. So when we had the chance to get it from 2017, we bottled a bunch. And it, I think just now, maybe running out 600.
So everybody needs to hear that. Start buying up some cases.
Yep.
Bobby, you and I need to hear that so we can go get our own cases. All right, Cab Syrah, huh?
Mm-hmm.
And I think just for everybody's interest, this is the old a woodblock print that my friend Tony Bell did of the old Friendly Tavern in Austin, where, you know, on those rare nights we weren't studying, we all went over and had a beer with the locals, and it's a great thing. And this, Bret, you know, we entered this label in a label design competition in San Francisco and won a silver medal for this. I've always especially loved this woodblock print. Tony whittled this out of a block of wood, dipped it in some ink, put it on a newspaper bag to give the sepia character, and said, "Would you like to have this?" You know, this was 60 years ago. Was I thinking about, oh, no, a label? No, but it's great fun to have it here.
I had no clue that's how the story came about of the woodblock print, that he whittled it out of wood and stamped it. That's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, he was able to whittle this amongst all your studying.
No, not me. Tony Bell did it.
Just whittle a little piece of wood.
I could. he had a lot of talent. I miss him.
Here's to Tony.
Here.
All right, who wants to kick off the Cab Syrah?
Well, Bret, I want to ask Bret about this. So I think the first time we made this, we were trying to figure out what to do with the Syrah. Isn't that right? And it needed some help, and we thought if we could help it.
I think the Syrah always needs help, but yes.
We can help it a lot with the Cabernet.
Yeah. So when I came back to the winter, I think in 2006, we had put this out in distribution as a Cab Syrah. And I think, or 2005, it was Cab Syrah. 2006, they made a really good one that they loved, and they wanted to call it Reserve Cab Syrah, except I think when they printed the labels, it didn't make it on the label Reserve. And so we kind of made the deal with the distributor that we were putting out this wine, and invariably the idea was to put a sticker on top of the label, a bottle on top of the label. And so when I came back to run the winter in 2006, I got there and they had, I think the vineyard crew guys came in one day when it was cold, and they all started sticking these stickers on the top of the bottle. And all I saw when I looked at the store was these running labels. They would like this. Some are crooked, some are strutting, and saying, "Man, I don't really like the way these look." And he says, "Well, what do you want to do?" And I said, "Well, we should take them off." So we peeled all the labels off. I'm talking about like 25,000 bottles, however many, it was a lot. And it took a lot of rainy days to get them on there straight. So the first item of business on the new label on Cab Syrah was to make dang sure that it was printed on the label so that we didn't have to add an extra sticker to it. And that was my first dealings with Cab Syrah. And so again, maybe I might be jaded. I've never said that things don't stick in my head. But again, this has been a staple for us probably since 2005 or 6. It's been in distribution. It's something you can find across the state. As much as my preconceived notions about Syrah and Texas are, and trust me, I have a lot of them. I really like this one. I think that this was probably the best standalone Syrah. If you went to the tank and pulled it out and it was lights out good just by itself, I think we could have bottled this Leahy Vineyard Syrah as a straight Syrah. But we went after this, we went after it in this program, and Rachel, I think it's like 35% of this blend, just that straight Syrah. There's nothing else. We didn't have to get 6 Syrahs from 6 different places. Plus, if you talk to a lot of growers in the state of Texas, they don't like growing this grape. And I'm one of them. I don't like drinking it that much, but growing it is even worse. And so this one was exceptional. We've had some good ones from our estate vineyard as you're driving down into the winery, but that's also a block that about every year about this time we start to prune it. I asked Doc, I say, that one only made 2 tons per acre. It's not looking all that great. Should we pull it out and replace it? And I'm a little bit jaded toward just because we fight it so much from the vineyard side. And then once it gets to the winery, these guys have to kind of make something with it. So, but again, this one I think is one of the best ones we've ever made. And I don't say that very much, but it's by far one of the Cab Syrahs we've ever made.
So Brett and I have some very differing opinions about Syrah. I feel like he clearly made it known that he does not love it. I do. And we argue about our estate Syrah all the time because he says the same thing, that we need to pull it up. It's not doing everything it needs to do. And I'm like, no, I think it is doing everything it needs to. And I think our estate produces lovely Syrah. Fortunately, just not as much as we want of it. But yeah, you're right. This Leahy Syrah, I think this is the first year that we actually got this particular vineyard. I think I can't remember, his Hill Vineyard. But yeah, we got quite a bit of it. He probably has more on that block than we have in the whole state. And like I said, we winemakers, we think we need it. It has a home.
Well,
it
I
has a
think
place
too
in the wines that we make.
Yeah.
Brett, I think we should plant 10 more rows.
I'm with you. I like it. It's a good plan.
Hey, it should be next to the Viognier.
That's
That's right.
Think about that. So someone did ask a question. Have we done a primary Syrah before?
I think
Yes.
so.
Yes.
Mhm. So here's the other problem is that like we make so many different wines. Sometimes, at least I do, I forget. Like somebody swore to me that we had a Syrah Merlot, and it was one of our good friends that all of us know, Bobby Watson. And I was like, "There's no way that there's a Syrah Merlot in your cellar." And I remember telling Doc, and he's like, "Oh yeah, we made one of those."
Yeah. So
I think it was in like 2002, maybe. It was in the time that I was gone from the winery. And I think you guys made maybe 300 or 400 cases of it. And it probably goes back to that story that we talked about originally why we came up with this, is because, the straight Syrah by itself, you need, like we all kind of feel like if the wine presents itself in a way that it can stand on its own, then that's what we do. And a lot of times this one just needs a little bump from something else. And so there was that one year we made the straight Syrah and then a Syrah Merlot, and then the staple has been the Cab Syrah for a long time.
I think really inspired by the Australian blend of Cabernet and Syrah. I think that's where they wanted to call Syrah Shiraz, with the thought that Shiraz in Persia or Iran was where it came from. It really didn't, but it certainly was grown there. But a lot of Syrah Shiraz planted in Australia is quite good, very, very inky and dark. Not unlike this. I think this is great.
I agree. That has great color, doesn't it? It's such a beautiful nose. It's one of the things that I think is very consistent with our Cab Syrah, that it has such a beautiful nose with those great blueberries, and the lilacs and the violets are in there, and they're always so pronounced.
Yeah, it also helps when you put it with Jets Cab and Canada Cab, and I'm reading the blend sheet here, the 6 Hearts Vineyard Cab. No, and there's something on this blend sheet that I was going to ask you. I don't recognize. It says Ready Vineyards Cabernet Sauvignon N-74. What is that?
Yeah, the last several years, I have tried to work very hard with our growers to get the block information, if they have already named their blocks of their vineyards, to associate that with what we're bringing in. So this is his North Block.
North 74. Gotcha.
Mhm.
And then I see ours.
74. Sorry.
Yeah, I see ours down there. So there's 5% of the Becker Estate Cab in here too. Block 3A. We should do a new wine block 3A. That'd be good.
I think it's such a fun idea. Because if I've worked hard with the growers, I've worked really, really hard on our vineyard to make sure that it is so well labeled and identifiable all the time. So we know exactly if we made something great out of the old cab, which is the 3A, by the way, that we make sure that we know and we don't have to second guess. This all came off of which block of that it was. So yeah, this is our old cab in there.
Rachel would get really mad because we call it old cab, newer cab, new cab. You know, vernacular.
It got to be a little much whenever it was new and newest, and the young and the newer. I'm like, no, we're done with that. We're going sciencey with numbers.
Yeah. The control groups, you know?
The controlling one.
Yeah.
Yeah, and people always ask what makes the distribution wines we have so good, and I'm just sitting there looking at this blend comp. I'm like, well, it's got 20% Jet Cab and 10% Canada Cab, and you know they're not 100%. And again, you go back and you try the Canada Cab and the Wilmouth Cab by themselves, and the basis for these wines that are in distribution, we don't just take and make 10,000 cases of Jet Cab by itself. We use that for a lot of the backbone and a lot of those wines that are in the stores, and we get a lot of push through those vineyards. And it's also why, when they come to the winery and they say, why don't you pay us $4,000 a ton for everything? And it's like, well, this sells for $15 at the grocery store. So, and there's a big percentage of that goes into this.
True.
10% of this blend is a lot of gallons.
Yeah.
Yeah. For real, this is originally an 18,000 gallon blend.
Oh yeah.
Wow.
That's huge.
That is
I
huge.
think.
So,
But Rachel, it's really drank so well. I mean, you really have done a great job with this. Thank you.
I think we have. I think, again, I love the fact that you guys have been making this as a distribution. What did you say, since 2002, 2005?
Mhm.
And again, we're at an 18,000 gallon blend just so that we can satiate our consumers' love of it. I think we clearly have been doing really well with this for quite some time.
I agree.
22% of this went in Allier oak.
Oh, you seeing this? Oh, I'm so excited.
I'm sorry to hear that.
Now, Doc, it might have been, it was a percentage of older use oak, but I guarantee you the Allier percentage was probably the Canada and the Wilmouth, or somewhere in there. And then 41% was Missouri.
Uh-huh.
And then the percentages, we had some barrel trials in there that we were doing. It was Missouri, but it was a different toast maybe. And that's what gets us up to 100. But again, this didn't get like the stuff in distribution doesn't just get put to the side. It gets the same treatment that the big dog wines do at the winery. So anyway, I think that's also why it's so dang good. There's not a lot of, expense spared on the barrel program on this. And I think that, Rachel, I don't see the percentage. 100% of this was in barrel, right? At one time.
Yeah, absolutely. At least aged in barrel.
Yeah.
I was thinking most of our reds will go through primary, at least the majority of primary fermentation in tank, because we're fermenting grapes. And it's hard to ferment the grapes in barrels, go through a tiny little bunghole. So yeah, we do all of our primary fermentation in tanks, and then we'll let it finish primary and go through malolactic in oak. But you're right, when you say that we don't bring in the grapes thinking with a bias that some of them are going to go in this direction and some are going to go in this direction. We treat all of our grapes the same, as far as with the utmost respect, with the intention of getting the best quality out of everything. And then we decide what avenue they're going to take once they're done.
It's true. Yeah. Thank you.
And don't be sad that some of those went into Allier. It's quite lovely.
What should I say?
Well, invariably, Rachel makes these spreadsheets, and this was a simple one pager. And I noticed we have a new page that's now the barrels.
Yeah.
On my cheat sheet, and by the time we get done, the spreadsheet will be like 3 pages long. You have to scroll through.
I'm trying to keep it small. I am so excited that I found this little piece of our database program that, we use for all of our inventory and our tracking of everything we do that says barrel exposure. So I can put the wines in and it will tell me how much time each one of the wines went in what, like whether it was in tank or in oak, and I can sort it by, as Bret was saying, Allier, which is the French forest that, for those who don't know, the Allier forest in France, where some of the oak comes from, or Missouri or Pennsylvania, Virginia. I can separate all of this out as I gain with the years.
Yeah, 75% of this, just doing my bad math, was in barrels that were less than 2 years old. So these aren't the 5th and 6th use barrels, they're the 3rd and 4th year barrels. I'm sorry. That's only 11 or 12% of this entire blend went in a barrel that was older than 2 years, which is crazy. It needs to be more expensive.
That'll be in this week's.
Good luck.
Right?
All day.
And I just think all the growers go, yes, back up to that price again.
Yeah.
So what do you think,
I've always-
how does Syrah complement each other?
Oh, Bobby, you tell me. What do you think, Bobby?
So, personally, I get a little bit of that green notes, but also a little bit more of the earthiness of the Syrah. The peppery notes kind of stand out from the Syrah, but whereas the almost like other end of the spectrum pepper, like vegetal pepper, kind of stands out from the Cabernet. So I don't know. That's kind of what I see out of the Cabernet and the Syrah.
So I'd like to throw something out real quick. We talk about, and I think the last time I was on here, we had the Canada family on here, and we talk about their cab all the time, and it's vegetal notes and how distinct their cab is, and it's so specific. I joke all the time that I can walk into the cellar whenever it's fermenting and go, and that's the Canada cab. I can tell exactly what it is. I think that I can taste that 20% of that Canada cab that's in there. Like you can just taste it. That's
I agree. Yeah.
Yeah, so 20% is what, 3,600 gallons roughly? 18,000 gallons?
Yeah.
It's a little bit of Canada cab, it's only 25, 40, tons. I don't know. Gosh, that's crazy.
Truck or two.
Yeah, that one needs to be hidden in the corner when they do the blend for this.
We have a lot of corners. There's a lot of places to hide stuff. Yeah, but isn't that nice? This is actually, we just bottled this recently. It's a new. I don't even know if everybody can find this in their stores yet. But it should be hitting the shelves pretty soon.
Yeah, it shipped maybe 3 weeks ago or something like that. I think we bottled it maybe 2 or 3 months ago. But trying to make that distribution pull through. If you're looking for it in the store, there will be the 18 next to it. So there'll be the time transfer where you got the 18 and the 19 side by side. So if you want to buy this one, make sure you're getting the right vintage on the shelf because they're not all the same. For about another
time to grab the 2018 so you can do vertical tastings.
Right.
And then certain stores, 6, you get 10% discount.
Bobby, we've won some terrific medals with these Cab Syrah blends. Can you tell us about some of those?
So this one.
This is probably too young to have done much, but
yeah, the next one has the previous one. Not sure. Look that one up real quick. Let's see.
I think it won a gold at the Houston Stock Show.
I think it did. Yeah, and I think also I thought in San Francisco one year, Bret.
Yeah, and I always pay attention to when they win the big awards, and I always look at the inventory to see how much we have left. And usually we win a big award. We have a big award, and we have like 35 cases left. I'm like, well, why couldn't we have won that award when we had 3,500 cases left?
It never fails. Never fails. Yeah.
So the 18 did win the 2021 silver medal, Texas class champion. And then the 17, that one won let's see. I don't see one on the 17. I see the one for the 18. So just one this year, Texas class champion.
So we got a big old belt buckle for that from the Houston Livestock Show. And again, I always preface this because people think that the only big competitions in the United States are the San Francisco, the International, or a few of the big ones, and the Chronicle. But the Houston Livestock Show and Rodeo, you cannot discount it because it's tied to a rodeo and a
That's
livestock.
right.
There's over 6,000 entries to this thing. John got to go judge it this year, and he was blown away by how they were efficient at what they did, and they raised a ton of money for scholarships in the state of Texas. So we hold that one just as proud as we do the ones in California or in France or in the Finger Lakes in New York or wherever. So
Any results from the Houston judge competition this year yet?
I think that they've been, yes, there's results, but we can't tell what they are yet, I think.
Are they good?
Yeah, well, John was judging, so hopefully he didn't screw up. You know, I think he said he did.
All right.
Rachel,
I'll be patient.
I think he did Sauvignon Blancs that were like, do you remember what class he judged? Like Sauvignon Blancs that were under like $30.
I think that's right.
So if White Wing doesn't win, it's he you know, we had a bad judge.
Is it $30?
Under 30. I think it's $29.95. Yeah.
You need to fix that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, beautiful wine. I know someone mentioned earlier about preference Petite Sirah Syrah, so I think that'd be a good segue to run into the Petite Sirah and see.
Right. Well done.
Hey, could you guess my answer between our talk about whether I like Petite Sirah or Syrah better? I think it's pretty much a hands down.
If I rolled my eye and got stuck, I'm sorry.
I mean, just swirling it, and it's just the aroma just comes up to my nose immediately. Just phenomenal. I mean, just so big of a nose.
Like what, Bobby? What are you getting on the nose? Use your good word.
Always get the vanilla, the coffee, the blueberry. I mean, it's just little leather.
Espresso, yeah,
Yes, sir.
smoky, black pepper.
Switching the glasses.
I think I like the Bordeaux glass with it best.
Yeah, it kind of needs that big glass, I think, for how, yeah, I mean, one of the things with this grape is that if you come to the winery, it's the block when you turn in the gate, as soon as you turn right, it's to your right. We have rows of it that are in the first section that are 12-foot wide. And then as they go down towards the winery, they switch to 10-foot wide sections. So it's kind of an interesting contrast in how they're planted and all that kind of fun stuff. But this one is one that was planted where the Viognier was originally planted that died for the third time. And finally we put it in. Doc?
And the Chardonnay.
Oh, the Chardonnay was there too, yeah.
And the red bonnets.
Yes, the red bonnets that didn't make. So John Thomas came one year and we planted red bonnets between the rows. And I think I have side help back here. Chris is here. She's telling me Jerry Parson A&M planted the red, but that was like the only year that it didn't hardly rain in the fall, I guess, when they need to germinate. And so I think we had like 5 of them pop up in the middle of the rows. But could you imagine driving down that vineyard and seeing 10 acres of, red bonnets between the rows? And we did everything we could. We tried not to mow it, until Chris still tells me that we tilled it too much, but we didn't. It just didn't rain at the right time. But this is right there at the estate vineyard. We put a little bit, Rachel, I don't have the text sheet pulled up on this. Do you have it?
Really? Of course I do.
I got it.
Yeah, so let me tell you exactly what this is. So it's all 2018. It's 95% Petite Sirah. 85% of that is off of our vineyard. It's got 10% Talent Vineyards out of Mason County, Syrah, and tiny 5% of Kunwa from Farmhouse.
which is like, why did we put Kuhnwa on this? No.
Because we like those bright strawberry notes that it provides. I can tell you.
Yeah. And I remember when we did the tasting in this dock that we tried it, and John added the Kuhnwa to it in our blind tasting, and the fruit note of the Kuhnwa. I think we're all sitting there going, "Wow, this was pretty incredible of what the Kuhnwa added to that depth of that heavy red wine."
I remember, yeah.
So I always get really excited whenever our estate Petite Sirah, like we actually get to do something like this with it. I think it was 2016. It was our estate Petite Sirah that was 100% that went into that bottle, and it was so lovely. It was so beautiful. So it's fun to see this one follow in its footsteps. It's again, not every year does it make it. Sometimes it needs a little help. Sometimes, like with the Kuhnwa, you need it just benefits from a little addition, a little boost. But I really like this one. And one of the things that I like so much about our estate Petite Sirah is that to me, it's not big and brassy. It has nice, subtle, smooth, like it's already aged. Does that make sense? It's never big and brassy and obnoxious. It's always just a nice, smooth, almost like a Bordeaux style wine.
And I think too that when we, I tell people this all the time, I guarantee in that tasting that we did blind, that we were picking the wine to make for this bottle, there was a wine that would qualify as a estate in that blind tasting, and we didn't pick it. We picked the one that was, 10% of talents. And I keep going back to that story all the time, because if we wanted to make all estate wines and we take that blind tasting out of our equation, we would make a wine that may be inferior to this because it needed 10% of the estate. The stuff from talent. And then, who would have put Kuhnwa on this? That's crazy.
John.
And again, no, I know. And they're going, well, we're running out of Kuhnwa. Kuhnwa. Now why we put it in this? And to give you guys a sense of how many gallons, we're talking about on the previous one, Cab Syrah, we made 18,000 gallons of Cab Syrah. This was 2,500 gallons. So, we talk about what's different, Bobby, in the tasting room versus distribution. This is a smaller batch. It also doesn't mean that we take away from what's in distribution or in the stores, but man, this one is something that there's no way we can make 18,000 gallons of this. It just wouldn't happen, but that's the difference.
True. Yeah.
This grape is interesting. This grape is was made in a greenhouse cross by a 19th century botanist, Francois Durif, and it's called Durif in France and other places. But it's a cross between Syrah and plus a native grape, and so it's amazing the way it's evolved. Some of the very old vines in lots of places are Petite Sirah. It's a very long lived.
So is Peller still an obscure varietal? Is it ever used?
I've never seen it anywhere else, Bobby. I don't know that.
Okay.
But I know it's part of the parentage of this grape.
Well, Bobby, back to your first question, what's the difference between Syrah and Petite Sirah? Here, Syrah grapes are, they're big. Typically, too, in Texas, when the Syrah hits about 23 bricks, it starts to lose its turgor on it starts to loosen itself from the actual rachis or the stem. And so I think we have a hard time getting it right because it starts to soften so soon, because it's such a big grape, too. It's just part of but petite obviously means small. And the Petite Sirah is half the size, at least, of the regular Syrah. I would say most of the time I've seen it. And we get this dark, inky, it's just got so much more. And Rachel's going to say, quit giving good descriptors out, because it's just a completely different deal. It's like comparing an apple to a banana in my mind. They have the same kind of name, we think, but they're really not even close to the same fruit.
No.
True.
The funniest thing about our planning of Petite Sirah is that after we lost Russell Smith and we were looking for a new winemaker, we had a French winemaker come and apply. Do you remember that, Brett? I don't know if you met him. But when he drove down the driveway, he saw Petite Sirah. And when he got to the interview, he said, I can tell you, the first thing I would do is pull out all the Petite Sirah. You cannot make good wine from Petite Sirah. And I know it.
At lunch, we're nice. You said,
I'm glad you weren't in the truck, Rachel. But
Yeah, I concur with that decision.
well, and I think too, we have to be real careful on this, how much fruit we put on it because it wants to grow. We changed the way we do cordons. We quit the cane pruning and went to just regular cordons. But I think that this is one that, man, if Doc wanted me to plant 10 more rows of this, I'd smile and go do it. I'd pull this raw up and put them in as fast as we could, right in that same spot, because this one just works on our site. But, we were mentioning about the white grapes that didn't work, the Chardonnay and the Viognier, but right on the other side of that block is our Sauvignon Blanc that's been there since 1999. And it's like, why did that make it to how old it is versus those other ones that just, the Pierce's disease burnt through them like a fire. And again, it's just, it's that spot, it's that place, and it's unique to what we do, and it's unique in every vineyard. And it's crazy how somebody thinks you could just take a spreadsheet and say, well, they got this much, they're going to get this much a ton, and it just doesn't work that way.
No.
It would be nice if it did.
Yeah, but
yeah, it's not the reality.
And this is we just put the 17 in the cellar, right? We just switched to the 18. So this one's fairly new too. I mean, this one's only been out for maybe 2 months, maybe 3 months. I don't have when we released it, but
well, we haven't released it yet, have we? Have we actually released it to the general public?
I think so.
Did we, Bobby?
Yeah.
This 18 Petite Sirah?
Yeah, this is right.
Oh yeah.
But just barely, like maybe a month ago.
Yeah, so
Pretty
it's been
much
in bottle since June.
Yeah, June of 20, right? So a lot of the times too, what happens is we're going through stuff and it's we're flying through wine, and we have to keep printing inventories and going, what's left? Holy cow, there's only 28 cases left of this.
Oh.
So it has to go to the library, and hopefully we catch something that we really like. And I think that we have about maybe 40 or 50 cases of the previous vintage that went in the library, and we switched to this one. But I think that this one is going to be good for a long, long time.
I do too, Brett. Yeah.
Yeah.
Lovely wine.
I'm sorry.
No, I think it's great wine. Thank you.
Yeah, I think it has that great tannic structure, and that's going to absolutely help it age 100%.
Yep.
All right, Bobby, any other questions?
I'm just seeing people mention goodbye Frenchie. We want to keep it. So
Yeah, that should be a T-shirt. We need to trademark that.
hashtag Becker Vineyards.
Yeah. Let's put that on record and record it right now that was our, that was right now.
Right. Yeah, exactly. We're going to trademark that one.
Yeah.
So yeah, people are enjoying the tannins, and say a lot of tannins to this, a lot of grip as well. Terrific stuff. Trish said she could drink a case and still be on her feet. So I don't know.
Over time.
Yeah. So what would we like to pair with these wines? I mean, I know that's kind of a big thing that John likes to go over each week is wine and food pairings with each.
Yeah. I'm thinking primarily Presbyterians, but let's see what everybody else thinks.
Hey, Bobby, you have control. You need to hit mute at certain times.
I thought I heard Dungeness crab in there.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Right.
That's right. It's a Presbyterian with a Dungeness crab. Could be the answer.
Mispronounced it. It's fine.
Yeah, I'll leave that there. All right.
But I agree. I think that butteriness would be so lovely and just really bind with those tannins and create nice mouthfeel.
Presbyterians can really soften tannins, I can tell you that. So
We probably need a little butter too.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Well, and Bobby, I think one of the things I'm gonna bring this back in. I gotta go like this. Right?
Yeah, please do, please. I think this is
Well, I think that you have three wines here that could go with three different foods, obviously, and they could also go as the same three foods or the same food.
Not
If
tenderloin?
tenderloin first, always.
like,
I've had these wines with tenderloin and they never are bad. So I think that this is a good case where these, like all these wines would hold up with the same food, but yet if you want to spin out of it and do pasta with, with the Cab Syrah, I think that would be great. I think you could do like a softer, like pasta carbonara being told over here with the Viognier. And then something really heavy and thick like beef bourguignon, like Doc has been, we've been eating at the winery with the Petite Sirah. And that's what's crazy about this lineup is it goes from, a white wine that's versatile to a red wine that's versatile, that's kind of medium bodied, and then this heavier red. We've had this with cake, dessert, Petite Sirah with dessert, and it does great.
true. Yeah.
Agreed.
That's as much as I can wrangle the herd as I can.
I don't know. With this warmer weather, I'm really looking forward to grilling again. So I don't know. I think that all these would be great at a barbecue.
I mean, if I had to pick one thing to pair with one of these, it would be the Cab Syrah with quail. That would be like off the grill, like just if I'm picking one, that's the one I'm going to pick.
And I think chicken mole with the Petite Sirah would be great.
Sounds great.
I'm gonna just stick with the Viognier and my friends. Not that I'm not eating my friends, just hanging out with them.
That's awesome.
So, Bobby, do you have what's up next week?
Next week we have got it's the week before Valentine's, so we threw in a rosé. So we got our Provençal, 2018 vintage, I believe. Let's see, 18 Provençal, our 2016 Cheval, and our 2016 Autunno, which the Autunno is on our new list tasting menu at the winery. So
That just started yesterday, is that right?
Just started, this week, yes, sir.
Yeah.
So it's fun.
Is the 16 Autunno also part of the wine club release? This upcoming wine club? Am I speaking too soon? This is what happens when you let me out of my cage.
Email went out today,
Did
so
it?
all wine club members out there, you should have gotten that email today, along with that we got booked up with our tastings for those 2 weekends. It sold quick, so just keep an eye out. We might have openings, but we're doing the best we can with what we got right now, and we do enjoy spending time with all y'all every week with these wines together in the comfort of our homes. And I appreciate everyone tonight. And once again, cheers, and here's to good health.
Cheers, Holly. Well said.
Nice job, team. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well.